And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. Welcome to all of you, wherever you are joining us from. Some of you may have tuned in to our new podcast, The Open Word, which is aired just before this program. It's aired at 6:30. Our new podcast, The Open Word. Today, it dealt with the local government election. Those of you who missed it can tune into it. You can like our subscribe, to our YouTube page, The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds, our YouTube page, The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds, and you can get that podcast there. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. Our guest this evening will be Mr. GHK Lall, and we are going to be getting behind the news as usual, bringing to bear analysis and commentary on the news of the day. We come on here tonight, of course, with the news that IPADG has said that its affiliates are free to take the handout that the government has decided to give them in lieu of the disbursement that was being withheld, and the mediation talks broke down, and the government decided, as it's in the business of doing, that it will give the money to the 55 affiliates of IPADG. Just as it's doing in Linden. The people of Linden said that they want an all-purpose ground, the Mackenzie Sports Ground, and they are going against the wishes of the community, and they're putting down a cricket ground. We remember when the issue came up about where to locate the 1823 monument, the same PPP government of that day went against the wishes of the Black organizations that said that they wanted the monument at the parade ground where the heads of the murdered 1823 fighters were paraded. The Black organizations wanted the monument to go there. And the PPP said no, they're putting it at the seawall. And they did that. And here is it, money that was passed by Parliament for IPADG. The government has decided that it will go past IPADG and give the money to the 55 affiliates of IPADG. Same story. They went to Moko, they went to the Black communities, they bypassed the leaders and said they're going directly to the people. This is the government that we are dealing with. This is the so-called One Guyana government. This is the so-called democratic government that we are dealing with. One Guyana, but you ignore the representatives of half of Guyana. It is very clear that the control, that is what the PPP is about. Welcome to Politics 101. If you're joining us from the United States, or you're joining us from Canada, or you're joining us from the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean, or in Europe, welcome to Politics 101. If you're joining us from Guyana, welcome to Politics 101. Welcome all of you to Politics 101. Again, those of you who missed the new podcast, the Open Word, which was aired just before this program at 6:30 Guyana time, you can get that podcast at our YouTube channel, The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds. Please subscribe to that channel. And of course, you can get the podcast there. And the podcast dealt with the conundrum that the opposition is into, or the conundrum that they have before them as it relates to local government election. Two opposition parties, the AFC and the WPA, have said that they are boycotting the elections. The PPP has nominated candidates, and for all intents and purposes, unless the court stops the election, because remember there is a court matter on the elections, the PNC, APNU would be contesting the election. The question then for the AFC and the WPA, would they be asking their supporters to boycott the polls? And if they ask their supporters to do that, would that be undercutting the PNC? Would that be playing into the hands of the PPP? Will that be turning over opposition strongholds to the PPP? The PPP has made clear the local government elections are not simple elections. The local government elections are part of the larger design of control. They already have total control of central government, the parliament, the executive. And if they were to have total control of local government, my God, they now have a veto on local government. If you now put them in charge of local government and central government, give them total control, it's quite a dilemma for the opposition, And I dealt with that in the podcast, the local government elections and PPP domination. You can catch it there. All right, so we have the local government elections. We have the government's attack on journalists, Kaitro News journalists viciously attacked by the government. The Guyana Press Association president or chairman viciously attacked by the government. The government recently went to Anne's Grove and continued the business of going into these communities and making promises and so forth. We have the issue of the Amerindian People's Association that has come under severe attack from the government over the issue of money coming from that carbon project. Vicious attack on the Amerindian People's Association. Vicious attack on Red Thread. Vicious attack on the Human Rights Association. Vicious attack on journalists. Vicious attack on the PNC. Vicious attack on the WPA. You see where we are headed. You all see where we are headed. And it must be pointed out that part of the media, the independent media that they're attacking now, took a stand in their favor during the electoral impasse in 2020. The Stabroek News and Kaitro News came down on the side of the PPP in a disputed election. Look how they're treating them now. Civil society organizations, which either remained neutral or came down on their side. Personalities like Chris Ram, I heard Jack Dio cussing out Chris Ram. Chris Ram came down on the side of the PPP in a disputed election. We call it ungratefulness, but it's more than that. What old people say? What you ask for is that you get. We have a runaway train. That is what we have, a runaway train. So those are some of the issues we're going to be discussing this evening with Mr. GHK Lall, who is ready, and let us bring him in right away. Good evening, Mr. Lall.
Good evening. How are you? Good evening, everyone.
I'm rolling with the punches. They're coming left, right, and center. Punches on civil society, punches on the media, punches on the political opposition. We have a government that is really, really, really out of control. No right anymore. No free speech anymore. As soon as you open your mouth, you're threatened with being locked up. You are abused. Where are we heading, Mr. Lall?
Well, good evening again, everyone. And the first thing I have to say is that you can only take so many punches. All right?
Yes.
You're going to have to devise a strategy like the great Muhammad Ali and slip some of them, or wrap your arms around those punches to neutralize them, to take the sting out of them. And you covered a plethora of troubling areas in your recital there a moment ago. And it really is disturbing that, on the one hand, we so proudly and so loudly say we are about democracy, and then the very ideals of democracy, freedom to associate with a party of your choice, freedom of speech, freedom to be even to be neutral. You spoke about neutral just now. They don't leave you alone if you're neutral, because that still puts you, categorizes you in the against bucket. You're either for or you're not for us.
Yeah.
And if you're not for us, then you're in trouble. They're going to come after you. And where I want to, I think we have already started, and we are well along the road of beyond domination and beyond the pursuit of total control. What we are seeing here is tyranny unleashing its disfiguring head, its face on this nation. And it's either that people will join with them, the PPP government, or we'll make an example out of you. I would like to start with that particular example you mentioned about Kaichur News. I know that young lady. I don't know the president of the Guyana Press Association, Miss Ragbeer, but I know Miss Davina Bagot very well. I think she's an honest journalist. I think she's a good, solid, industrious citizen. And for her to be asking, she's not even attacking anyone. She's not writing opinion pieces and going after and castigating leaders for failure. She's saying, well, what about this? And what about that? Oil and gas, the environment, insurance protection. Questions that need clear and persuasive answers. And for that, you come after her personally and strip her of her dignity. I mean, if you're going to attack someone, do it above the belt. Come out and face your accuser. This is the honorable way. This is the samurai way. This is the Roman law. Face, present the accuser. Let us deal with this on a level. But the government and its agents are not dealing on a level ground. They are going to go underground and they prefer to drag people underground with them. When we respond in kind, when we allow ourselves to be dragged into the gutter, the sewer, then they have won. Because there's nothing separating us from the people who defame others, who viciously attack either the opposition leader unjustifiably, and he has his flaws, or the Guyana Human Rights Association president, or the IPADA G executive, or black leaders that stand against them. There, what is happening here is a continuing program dedicated to ostracize, demonize, neutralize, paralyze, and pauperize. And Ipadaji is the classic. So we're going to delve into these as we go along. But in a nutshell, I see a government on the rampage. It's running amok. On the one hand, I have the president, and due to his high office, I have to say, I think he means well, but he goes about it in the absolute wrong way. I think he's more focused on being a showman, on being an actor, on reading from the script that has been thrust into his hands, as opposed to really genuinely governing. If you're going to govern, you're not going to be focused on goring the people that are, let's say, against you. You're not governing when you go after and gore it G or the APA, the Amerindian People's Association, or the Guyana Human Rights Association. No, self respecting governments do not do that. Leaders of class do not do that. Leaders with the people's interests are not about a one way street where we will do the talking and you will do the listening, or else, or more, you will do the listening and you will do the following, or God help you. You will obey. We are not serfs. This is not the Middle Ages. This is the 21st century in oil rich Guyana. When the government says, the PPP government says, that we are doing this and we are doing that, and look at what was done before, there's no comparison. We have oil money. We have people falling over themselves to get here and invest money. Foreign investors, US dollars, on and on. The banks want to lend us. The IMF put out a report that yes, we are among the highly indebted countries in this region, and so on and so forth. But we've got collateral. We have collateral, and the most prized collateral of all. So really, and we've got it by the zillions, and we've got a product that's in demand. It's in demand. Fossil fuels may be on the way out, but it's got decades more, unless some revolutionary thing happens with fuel cells and hydrogen and salt water or whatever else. It is in the mix. So we are sitting well. So why is our government so insecure that every whisper, every mutter, this program, they have their monitors peering to see what you're going to say and to see what is going to be considered offensive and disagreeable. What is a democracy without dissent, Dr. Hines? Fellow Guyanese who are listening here, what is a democracy without dissent? Honest dissent. I may be wrong, but I'm honestly dissenting because this is how I see it. There's nothing, everything does not boil down to the partisan, the passion. It's about, look, this is the environment, this is common sense, and this is how it appears to my simple mind. This is how it strikes my little way of thinking. It might be peculiar. It's not contrarian for being contrarian's sake. It is about what hurts our people. What hurts our people that they are, Mr. President, what are you going to do for us in Ants Grove? Why do we have to be on our hands and knees or reduced to that state? And we are the richest people in the world. So instead of the care and compassion, the time and the patience, the interest and the embrace that is about a caring government, a respected government, a trusted government, we have this season of viciousness. And I think it's going to be a long season. We are in the winter of our discontent, to use that famous John Steinbeck title for one of his great books. We are in the winter of our discontent, and there's a chill wind that's blowing across this land here. There are only so many people that you can force to bow down to you. Because when the government keeps going down this road, some will kowtow and some will be radicalized. And that is my fear. That is my concern, that some will be radicalized because you have taken away every other option from them. Is that what we want? Is the government trying to provoke a confrontation? That's a legitimate question, I think. Is the government forcing the ante, pushing the envelope, so that it can get the kind of response it can unleash its forces and let there be a test case? I don't want that. I don't think any Guyanese in his right senses wants that. I do not think that the foreign investors want that. And I don't think that will be good for anybody. Government, people, opposition. We can lambaste and label each other forever. But at the end of the day, once we are within the 83,000 square miles, and we call ourselves Guyanese, we're going to have to find a way to work this out. Are we not even having that conversation? One of one of the three linchpins of the president's inaugural address was unity. Transparency, accountability, and unity. They stick in my mind almost 3 years later. Unity. Yet everything that he does is a startling contradiction of unity. I think sometimes it is as though there is a deliberate movement on an attempt, a vision, and ambition to foster disunity. Yes, we have one Guyana. It's a wonderful slogan. Who can argue with that? But one Guyana for whom? and one Guyana of what for the others that are not within that one umbrella? These are the questions that we are not asking. We are rushing over them. These are the things that, in a time of plenty, we should have had the luxury of sitting down and saying, well, we've always been this way. Where can we be different, and how can we be different now? That higher ground that has always eluded us. This is not philosophical, Dr. Hines. Fellow Guyanese, this is not philosophical. This is what is practical for this country. We have been quarreling all our lives, so we don't even know how to stop quarreling now. Squabbling, bickering. And if we don't go a day without bickering, it's like a domestic violence victim, a woman, who wants to know what she did wrong. Why am I not being beaten today? We have beaten each other up so much that we've fallen in love with it. And I say each other because they are, to use UC Kwayana's words, they are no innocents. There are no innocents in this country. So if we are willing to start from there, and we have a government that we have a leader, and look, forget about third term and all the other things which have relevance and resonance. I think the president has to look at himself in the mirror and said, I'm a young man, and I've now started, I'm about to go into my third year. And there's a lot I can do for my countrymen and countrywomen, and I will do it, so help me God. But I don't think he's there. And even if he wants to get there, even if he wants to get there, there are forces within his own circle that are holding him back. We have to engage if we are going to have unity, any semblance of unity, any hope towards it. We have to engage, and it is the government's role. It's the government's initiative, I think. It's my position to take that first step. I will extend the hand as leader to you in brotherhood. I will make that move. You slap my hand away. You turn your face away. You turn your back. But I would have gone on record as sincerely and authentically being about that first step. We
GHK Lall here tonight, introducing us to the concept of brotherhood and national unity, and asking questions of the government. By your actions, are you living up to these ideals? Are you living up to the realities that we have fought for all these centuries? Here we are in 2023 with more wealth than we have known since independence. And where is our government headed? GHK, let me take you back to the ITPADG issue. As you know, ITPADG, and our audience, I don't think needs to be reminded that they withheld the subvention from ITPADG. ITPADG went to court. They just tell them, go and settle this thing. It doesn't belong here. They went into mediation, and the mediation broke down. The talks broke down. What does the government do? Does it say, let's sit down again and try to see if we can resolve this thing a second time? No. It says the money, we are going to go and give it to the 55 affiliates of ITPADG. Please take us behind that text. Give us the subtext here, Mr. Lall.
I want to look at this from two ways. From the beginning of this sorry chapter in our lives, in Guyanese life, ITPADG, from my perspective, must be commended for managing themselves, the executives, in a very tempered and reasonable manner, despite tremendous provocation, fraud, Well, first of all, we're not giving you the money, and there was nothing coming forth. Then the books are not in order, but we have the audit reports, and you've had them, and they are not from 2015; they are recent. Then one of the executives, I think it was Vincent, libeled a court matter, and then we came to the court saying, "Folks, sit down at arm's length, look at each other in the eye, and and excuse me, and settle and put this thing to bed. Put this thing to bed." So, from Epadaji's perspective, they are moving along under duress to get to that place where the subvention could come in and they can service the 55 other entities serving the interests of African Guyanese. From the government's perspective, as I see it, what is the objective here? And I go back to those 4 or 5 verbs that I use: ostracize, demonize, neutralize, paralyze, and pauperize. And we now see this business about pauperize. We're going to go around you. You sit down. Are you sitting down in good faith? Did you ever intend, Mr. Attorney General, and I know he's the front man for the government, did the PPP government really go to that table with a view to coming to a resolution that was constructive and in keeping with good faith resolutions, in keeping with outcomes that would be of interest to this section of the Guyanese community that is served by Itpadaji? The talks broke down. You'd think that you'd have several rounds more of talks and you'd inch forward, like trade unions, back and forth, back and forth. But no, right away, the talks broke down and that's the end of the matter. And lo and behold, almost immediately, within a few short days, the government shows its hand. And perhaps that was the hand all along. We are going to shove you aside, as we have done in other places before, Parliament, village councils, Amerindian village councils, and we are going to do this our way. So, 4 organizations, if I have this well, 4 entities, 4 African entities under the IPADA G umbrella, according to the AG, came forward and said, well, we don't like how things are happening, or we have been victimized, or something like that, shortchanged. I'm using my words. Well, all right, let there be a sit down here. But there's no such thing. Let's thrash this out. Instead, 2% of that 55, yes, that's 2%, I think. And 411, that's 8%. Yes, 4 out of 55. 8%. And so the show is stopped. Everything is over. We're going to go and deal directly with these people. Now, what you do there is you create an environment where people have to come to you on their hands and knees when you are ready for them to give them how much you want to give them. This is in violation of the UN mandate. This is in violation of, remember, this was a budgetary allocation.
Yes.
So you have an act of parliament. You have an act of parliament via the budget mechanism that $100 million goes to Ipadaji for this year, 2023, and it will take care of that, maintain its books, and make available its books for review whenever. Instead of that happening, We have now this end game, which was the game all along. I think, this is my position, that the PPP was like, we're going to find a way to get rid of you. We're going to neutralize you, and then we're going to paralyze you, and we don't care what the court says. I think that Nigel Hughes and Vivian Williams have look, this is a court matter. We really can't say much. It is still live in the courts. We can talk about it in our little way. But clearly, I am not seeing governance here. I go back to that word. I'm not seeing governance. I'm seeing a government out to gore it prodigy and paralyze it out of existence. I am seeing divide and rule, divide and diminish, divide and dilute. And you will have, and I like, I like today's development. And I must thank the people at Prodigy for striking the right notes every time. We will not tell our people what to do. We will not tell them don't take the money. We will not take. Our position is this: you've got to decide for yourself. We have got matter being pursued along a different line, and as far as we are concerned, this thing is still ongoing. But there will be some takers, and and definitely the four that went. Those takers now, others are going to say in this hard guava season, well, I need to align myself too because good things come to those, and that's one of the objectives. And with that as the objective now, some more ground is gained by the government. But in the wrong way. That kind of attitude and action creates rancor, it creates resentments, seething resentments. You are not treating us with dignity. You're not treating our people with respect. You are treating us as charity cases.
Yeah.
You are making us into basket cases where we've got to go with our hands outstretched. I may use the word opportunists. And you know what happens to opportunists and hustlers, right? Those are terrible words. With your hands stretched out, you're going to have to sing songs for your supper that you just received. And that is where what this is all about. First, I commend the Ipadaji for holding the high ground and maintaining that decorum. I wish I could say the same thing about the PPP government and how it has conducted itself in this rather sorry affair. Again, we keep going down the same road, and I ask myself, and I ask you, Dr. Hines, to what purpose? This is governance. This is democracy in action. This is unity. If the answers to those questions are yes, then I belong on another planet.
GHK Lall here, and GHK, since I philosophically starts from the point that human beings are rational and human beings are good, I have to believe that the PPP's objective is first and foremost to control Guyana, to control the wealth, to channel it in ways that would be beneficial in the long term to the PPP and its friends and maybe its constituency. I have to believe that's their first line of action. And that they've come to believe that it is possible to do so if you neutralize, ostracize, and you make people who support the opposite party, you make them docile, and then you will get ahead. I don't think that they're figuring that as you ostracize, as you divide, as you neutralize, you're also, as you said earlier, radicalizing. and that it is that radicalization that would lead to a confrontation. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm assuming that they do not start by saying, we want a confrontation. I'm assuming that they start by saying, we want to dominate and control, and we want to use this oil money to recreate Guyana for the next 50 years. And that in order to do so, the biggest obstacle is African Guyanese. So we've got to neutralize them. We've got to make them docile. And they go ahead and do that. And I think that they do not figure in the third factor. And that is what you mentioned, the radicalization and ultimate confrontation. Yes, you wanted to say something.
Before you go on, there are two things.
Mm.
You may have the best intentions in this world, and let's give the government, the PPP government, the benefit of that for sake of discussion. You may have the best intentions in the world, but the best intentions, if implemented in the wrong way, which I see what is happening here, they certainly are not the best intentions, and they're implemented in the wrong way, it cannot be painless. It cannot be seamless. That's the first point I want to make. The second one, you said you believe in the innate, inherent goodness of man, and I do too. And man is a rational actor. But I'd like to share this one with you. We are rational people in that we rationalize our irrationalities. To our mind, in our minds, the irrational is rational.
Irrational, yes.
And that is what is happening here.
GHK Lall, their wisdom here this evening. Welcome to Politics 101, Behind the News with GHK Lall. We are in troubled times. We are in interesting times, not for the first time in the life of our nation as an independent nation and before. These are interesting times. Now, GHK, yesterday was nomination day for local government elections. 3 of the 6 commissioners have said that they do not believe that the arrangements in place for the election can deliver an election that can stand the test of integrity, electoral integrity. And so they have no confidence in the election. The opposition PNC has argued that even with a crooked election or crooked arrangements, from a pragmatic standpoint, they cannot give up control of those municipalities and neighborhood councils where they are guaranteed to win. So they have to participate from a pragmatic standpoint. 2 of their opposition partners, the AFC and the WPA, have said that they're not participating. And at least the WPA had indicated that it was going to call for a boycott. The PPP paraded yesterday defectors from the PNC and showcase that those defectors as evidence that they're gaining ground among the voters. So the argument is that we have people defect at the top, and this will bring us votes from the bottom. With local government elections with low turnout generally, but with the PPP showing its hand that it intends to use the local government elections not as a form of democracy, but as a form of control and domination. A dilemma, a conundrum. Talk to us.
All 2 in 1. a dilemma and a conundrum, and to that you can throw in a puzzle or a mystery, to paraphrase Churchill. Now, historically, local government has been low turnouts. The margin for error, all things being above board, is slim. The PPP has a lot of money, a lot of resources, technology, cash box, boots on the ground, the media, the preponderance of the media on its side, and so on and so forth. I think it could make some inroads here. And that's without going into any electoral skullduggery. So I'm beginning to ask myself whether the WPA call has some prescience to it. Because you have these defections, that's on the one hand. Then the next instance, you can buy votes. And I see the president took umbrage at that in Demerara Waves late this afternoon. I woke up this morning and I well, I think the president again is engaging in that kind of great acting ability, which he keeps refining, as though he doesn't know anything about money being splurged about to buy favor, to influence people, to show the PPP flag. Okay, I mean, he's big into taking out photographs with a couple of black people here and there, and look, it's not just a photo op. There's opportunity for those people,
Yeah.
right? And they're human too. It's a matter of survival. So if you've got the money, you can make the difference. You can close the gap. And I think that this is a threat to the PNC. I don't think Linden is under threat or New Amsterdam, but I think Georgetown is in play. I am going on record now that I think that Georgetown is in play. And please read through the lines there, folks.
Mhm.
But the opposition is brimming with confidence, and it says we are on the move and we are ready and we are prepared. And sometimes, well, I do hope so, because we already have central government stalking this land and casting a very long and fearful shadow over it. If you've got local government in the bag, then what is left? What is left there now? We are not talking about control anymore. We're talking about total control now.
Yeah.
And so what is left now are these little pockets, these little isolated pockets of objection and resistance like this program. And so you become sitting ducks. You're there are too few of you. But sticking with local government here, or using local government as context, we have now the concern right from the get go that the mechanisms are not ready for a robust and comprehensive and credible electoral process at the local government level, which is what, a month away, 2 months away, June 13th, 14th. I don't think the thing is ready yet. And that's just the layman. I don't like how where GCOM is now. GCOM has become one of these shadow organizations. It is there, it has some presence, but does it have substance? Does it have the kind of substance that brings trust in it? When I look at how the deputy is organized, the deputy has been appointed, and some other things, and some people that I happen to know who are there. What really is going on here? Local government, I think, the PNC really didn't have a choice. It had to contest. But is it contesting with its hands tied behind its back? In other words, that the cards are marked already, that the result is set. So Georgetown is a strong one, and I'm focusing perhaps inordinately on Georgetown. But you lose Georgetown, which has never happened before, then where are we? Georgetown has been strangled of funds. The mayor, the city council has been prevented from doing anything about collecting revenues, meaning taxes, doing something about its rates and taxes. Then how are you going to serve? That's a conundrum. How are you going to service it? In the meantime, you come through the Ministry of Local Government and you say we're doing this with the markets. We're doing this in some part of Rhymefell. We're going to do this, and it's all high profile and well covered. And people are sitting back and say, well, perhaps if the government throws its resources here, it would be a good thing for the Garden City. We could get back to that state. So all these things are percolating and they have relevance now, especially given the state of Georgetown. I am in Georgetown. Let me make this straight. I am not voting in any elections. I've said that one, two, three times before, and I'm saying that here. So I can speak very, very freely and openly as to where I stand with this. I'm beginning to lean more towards the WPA and say that perhaps a boycott of local government elections, given where things are, may have been the best possible choice to make in the circumstances. The turnout, I believe, will be lower this time than traditionally, which narrows the gap for a switch, which also increases the probability that you can tamper with the thing and it becomes a bit more difficult to detect because there's not much to work with. So you can make some moves, you can finance some moves and read into that,
Yeah.
and there you are. So that's how I see local government currently.
Yes, and I think that you're right. It's both a conundrum and a dilemma. I mean, the PPP has enough money to buy votes on the ground, but also to buy folks who are in control of running the elections. So the PPP could buy the elections. Either way, buy it from the bottom or buy it from the top. And that's the dilemma, the conundrum there that the PNC has to deal with. Can it mobilize enough of its people to go to the polls to nullify the buy-in, both at the level of GCOM, but also at the level of people on the ground? That is the $1,000 question. I dealt with this issue on my podcast. For those of you who missed it, it aired at 6:30 just before this program. You can get it on Politics 101 on CAMS TV and also on my YouTube channel, The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds. Please subscribe to that channel and you can hear my views there on this conundrum, this dilemma that the opposition finds itself in, given all the dynamics in our society. GHK, the Amerindian People's Association, and the carbon credits, and the quarrel with the government, and the attacks from the government. What's happening there?
I think John Hess, the CEO of Hess Corporation, a partner with ExxonMobil in offshore Guyana, SO Guyana, must be asking himself, did I jump the gun too early? What did I get myself into here? And I think, well, he's not going to come out and say that, but I think that he's talking to himself and saying, This is what I call a snake pit with an ant's nest amongst Plimpler bush. So anyway you turn, you can get jam, you can get joke,
Mhm.
right? And that's where this is. The Amerindian People's Association. I mean, the people are talking about FPIC, not FDIC that you and I know, David, bank insurance, free, prior, informed consent. It's a constitutional right, Amerindian Act. Come on. This is what democracy is about. These people are governed by village councils, and just as has happened on the East Coast, just as happened in the bigger stage of Parliament, the government bypasses what it doesn't like and sets up mechanisms and people to be populated by people of its choice to do things its way. The Amerindian People's Association say, hold up, here. We have to have a say. FPIC boils down to that. We have to have a say. We have to be able to be in the roll up our sleeves, be in the middle of this thing from the get go, participate actively and genuinely, and come to our own conclusions about what is fair and right for us at our levels in the hinterlands, among our own people, raising our own voices and coming to our own ideas about what is best for us. Politics, that's you. That is self determination. Self determination is not me determining from Georgetown what is good for them, me being the PPP government, what the vice president or the minister of Amerindian Affairs say. This is about the people deciding for themselves that we have a sacred right to these forests, what goes on in it, how it is managed, how it's controlled. The carbon credits come from what we've been doing this for centuries. We, to talk about the amount of money and how it's dispersed and who's going to be in charge of it and so on and so forth. It's all being rammed down the throats of these people. And I think that the APA has responded properly. Now, I don't know the people on the other side. I don't know any of the people on the APA side. But I think when the government lashed out and said that, oh, the APA is a PNC organization, is a PNC front or something like that, they just did the APA a favor,
Yeah.
whether it's affiliated or not. What does that have to do with their rights of self determination, with their rights of FPIC, free, prior, and informed consent? Do they have a brain in their heads? Because they live in the interior, are these people incapable of thinking for themselves? So we have to think for them from here, from our vantage point and our ivory towers in the big city? I think that that's wrong. I think that all the APA is saying, give us a fair hearing, give us a fair listening, and let's have this kind of conversation. Instead of that, it's the horses for courses, where, just like the Guyana Human Rights Association, just like IPADG, just like the opposition, you get this vicious attack, this vehemence directed against the people of the APA. If every conversation we have in this country boils down, distills to, well, you're a PNC man, you're a PNC front, you're a PNC affiliate, then what do we have here? Does to be pro Guyana automatically transform one into a PNC acolyte? What happens if I am just pro Guyana? I'm not anti PPP
Mhm.
or anti PNC. I'm just pro Guyana. Is there no such thing anymore? What happens if I'm pro Amerindian rights in this context? What happens if you, Dr. Hines, as an Africanist, is for pro African rights or Our brothers in the Indian segment are for pro-Indian rights, but not exclusively or to the detriment of the rights of others. That's the qualifier here, and we must never lose sight of this. One of the hallmarks of democracy, of the human capability, is to think, to reason, to rationalize, to weigh pros and cons, to say, hey, wait a minute, that's good for me, that's good, or that's something is missing there. But that's me, all of those are being taken away from us automatically when you are buttonholed and cubbyholed into that's you're a PNC man, right? And the other side is guilty of this, so you're a PPP man.
Mhm.
Is this the limit of our intellect? Is this the maximum wisdom that we are capable of? I think that the APA is on good grounds. The Amerindian People Association is on good grounds. It is fighting for what is right for the indigenous people of this country. You get a few people and you throw some money at them, and you arrange things with them, and you send them on a trip on a junket, and they feel good about themselves. They see some bright lights. That's not governance. I mean, that's positioning things for specific outcomes that could be very deleterious to the interests of the majority of those people in the villages. Look, carbon credits mean that the what's it? The fossil fuel companies, it's the oil companies, have been given a license to flare more. So they're taking our forests and use it as the collateral, so to speak, or as the vacuum, the suction to give them, I'm using this rather crudely, to cover for whatever they do out there, which we really don't have a handle on, right? So everywhere we turn, we're losing. But the relevant point here is that the Amerindian people are raising their hands and saying, not so fast, brothers, not so fast. Let us pause here. Let us recalibrate and let's revisit how we've approached this thing. And for that, you're going to take their heads off? I think that we really have to have a revolutionary rethinking of governance in this country. This heavy handed, unilateral, one dimensional form of leadership and governance can only last for so long. And I think that our fellow Americans, David, have got to be perturbed because this is not good for stability in the long run. The government may fool itself and tell itself that, listen, we have things under control, and we really aren't particularly apprehensive about this. Okay, be that as it may. The fact of the matter is that outsiders are looking on and saying, what is really going on in Guyana? Is it a safe investment? I come from that community where political risks are weighed in. Sovereign risk, default risk, political risk, and then you got the whole series of financial risk. So political risk is a vital component of an investment decision. It has weighings attached to it, right? This is the granularity to which sophisticated investors go into. When hedge funds, $100 billion hedge funds, the Carlyle Group, BlackRock Group, Fidelity, where I work for, another one where I work for, you're talking of people with 30 plus thousand and 70 plus thousand employees in the Boston area. They have people who are sitting down and putting into their calculations weighings for political risk, which means stability, our ability to to recoup our funds invested and to make the returns that we went in there to get. Once that is tampered with, or once there is a potential for that to be tampered with, the Americans can't be pleased. Sarah Ann Lynch, I hear she's been going for a while, she's done her duty well here. She has got to be passing on that into the cables, that there are people in Guyana that are unhappy with what is going on, right? And the situation with the Amerindians and with the African Guyanese are cases in point. That it is not all honky dory, it's not all apple pie and cook up rice and curry and rice as we like to think, to use Creolese lingo, that all is, is sunshine here. We have this conundrum. Here's this biggest conundrum. We are the richest people on earth per capita or whatever. We are the richest people on earth statistically, on paper. So why we have people lining up and hungry? Why we have public servants crying? Why we have people in the interior without? Why we have 48% of our population living on, what's it, $1,100 a day,
Mhm.
$5.50 US? How do these things reconcile? Nobody's looking for overnight miracles. I am not. Okay, but we can do better than where we are. Why is it that some people in this economy are doing so fabulously well and so many are doing so poorly? Amerindian People's Association are crying out for their rightful seat at the table, for a rightful hearing on the issue of carbon credits, and they are do it. And let me tell you this, indigenous people's rights have a premium in the developed world. And
Yeah.
that is where the consternation on the part of the PPP and the agitation of APA has some groundings. They don't like that. It's not me and you making some noise. Indigenous people, when they say something and they have credibility, it's like the best you can do, when the best you can do is slap them with the label of PNC, that perhaps is doing them a favor, whether
Yes.
they got a relationship or not. Because somebody's sitting somewhere and say, how did it come to that? These people must be saying something that goes to the core of the issues that are wrong for how they are being treated.
GHK Lall here, talking us through some issues, some uh, aspects of the news. As you can see, the government has declared war on Amerindians now. They've long declared war on Africans. They've declared war on Human Rights Association, Transparency International, the Guyana chapter. They have declared war on the media. Oh my goodness. What more do we want to see? Um, we are in perilous times. GHK, your closing thoughts, anything that you badly wanted to say that I didn't ask?
As a Guyanese, I'd like to say that we are doing well, but then I'd be not telling the truth. I'd be stifling my conscience. I want to see the government do well, because if the government does well, then a greater number of Guyanese across the national spectrum is impacted positively. African Guyanese, Indian Guyanese, indigenous Guyanese, and mixed Guyanese. So it is counterproductive on my part, on anybody's part, to say, well, let us bring them down. What we can do is hold their feet to the fire. And that's where we are here. Now, philosophically, many may differ from me, but I'm saying we can twist arms, we can bend ears, and we can get in faces to say, this ain't right. And that's what we are doing here. And if that is going to get us in trouble, and that is going to put us on dartboards and put targets on our backs, well, I say, like Martin Luther, here I stand. Do whatever you have to do. I have to do what I have to do. And that's not a cliche. The fact of the matter is that we have a government that's very thin skinned, very impatient, gets very angry with dissenting positions. That was Joseph Stalin in Russia.
Mhm.
They hunted down even the isolated instances of objection, of protest. We are seeing that here where they will make examples of those who dare to raise their hands and say, I've got a problem with that. Might be the APA, might be the IPADA-G, might be a journalist going about her work. It might be you on this talk show. It might be me writing a column or a letter or something. And it is really a troubling commentary on where we are in this country. In the best time, or what should be the best time of our lives, we we are in this state of disarray. I close out by saying this. I thought I made a mistake by not including this in our list of topics to talk about. But it's good for me to close out on this. Father of the nation. It seems that everything we touch has to end up in controversy.
Yeah.
Somebody said, you can't even mention Burnham name in the thing, and the hatchets come out. But how can you leave him out? Yes, I hear Jagan. Fair enough. But somebody came up with a better idea. Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow. And then somebody came with one that trumped that. Coffee.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a real father of the nation, you go all the way back. But, Coffee, Critchlow, Cherry Jagan, Forbes, Burnham. They all have played their parts. But when we come to this point that we hate a Burnham so much, then there's too many knots inside of us. And unless we can untie those knots, unravel those knots and straighten ourselves, then we can have all the oil in the world and all the patrimonies, and we'll still be in the same place. I know this thing, I can tell you. And these are my parting words to you, my fellow guidees. If Forbes Burnham or Chetty Jagan were here today, we would not be dealing this way with the Americans, with Exxon, with Hess, or with anybody. We would be in a better place. May God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And what a note to end on. Whatever you say about Burnham and Jagan, they were nationalists. And they believed deeply in this place called Guyana and the wider Caribbean. They believe deeply that government should be used to empower people and to lift those at the bottom up. Whatever else you can say about them, and there are things that were not so hunky-dory about them that we can say, but they believe deeply in this space called Guyana, that it was more than just a physical and geographical space, that it was a consequence of the long night of struggle against oppression, and their attitude to big countries, powerful countries, would have been totally different. Their attitude to the patrimony that is now ours would have been totally different. Thank you very much, GHK, and I shall see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And to you, our audience, I want to say thank you very much. You can catch my latest podcast called The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds. I dealt with election, local government election, and PPP dominance. You can, it was aired just before this program at 6:30, but you can catch it on Politics 101 Facebook, CAMS TV Facebook, or on our YouTube channel, The Open Word with Dr. David Hinds. Please go and subscribe to that channel so that you can be alerted when the podcast is going to be aired. I want to thank you all so much for coming out. Tomorrow night, I'll try to get someone from the PNC to come on to talk us through what all of us are going to be consumed by. And that is the coming local government election, and where the PNC stands at this pivotal moment when the PPP has made it very clear, come hell or high water, they want to control every form of government in this country of ours. We cannot allow them to do that. We cannot allow them to do that. And so we have got to be vigilant.
One race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. So we must push one common intention. It's for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean.